One, does President Trump believe that it was a good thing that the South lost the Civil War?
What a great question. If you noticed, I'm using quotation marks with my fingers. What's Ryan Lizza really trying to ask here? Is he trying to say that President Trump is sorry that the South lost the Civil War? You know, it's actually a very good question to ask, but not a very good question to ask a Republican president. I mean, if anything, if Ryan Lizza wants an answer to that question, he really should be asking Democrats. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if there was no Democrat Party, there probably wouldn't have been a Civil War. Does that sound over the top to you? It shouldn't, because Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, he was a Democrat. Every state in the South since the Civil War up until, about 1970, 1980, was a Democrat, overwhelmingly Democrat state. Abraham Lincoln got no votes in a whole bunch of southern states. They didn't like him. The man who assassinated President Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth, was a Democrat and an actor. A very prominent actor, by the way. Kind of makes you realize that the more things change, the more they kind of don't change. Nathan Bedford Forrest, who's credited with creating the Ku Klux Klan. He was a Democrat. And the Democrats seem to me have a lot of explaining to do when it comes to the Confederacy, not President Trump or any Republican. After the Civil War ended, Democrats lynched Republicans. A lot of those Republicans were blacks, of course, but they also lynched white Republicans. So the Democrats have been the party of hate for a long time. And it hasn't changed now. It hasn't changed now, and didn't change in 1965 or 1964 with the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Didn't change at all. So Ryan Lizza is asking a pretty odd question to a Republican. Maybe should be asking Nancy Pelosi that question. Of course, she'll probably slap him across the face, which is, what Kayleigh McEnany should have done. But, this whole thing got me thinking, what would make Ryan Lizza, besides the fact that he's like a faithful Democrat, party apparatchik, and he's like just doing the work of the Democrat Party at a news conference. Besides that, what would be his motivation for asking that kind of a question when you have a president who's had enacted no policies that, as far as I could tell, that are explicitly or even can be interpreted as racist or anti-black in any way? When President Trump came into office, there was so many black people out of work. The unemployment rate had declined since its peak in 2009, but we can't point to any policy that President Obama did to make that happen. Really, the credit probably goes mostly to the Fed for keeping interest rates low and allowing the U.S. economy to recover, while Barack Obama was trying to strangle it to death with regulations and taxes. So I don't know that you could give Obama any credit for the reduction in the unemployment rate for anybody, including black people, during his term in office. And I'm willing to hear it out. If anybody watching this has information that I'm not aware of, of something Obama actually did that helped reduce the unemployment rate, and you can point it out to me and make the argument, I'm willing to hear it. But I haven't heard, I've asked this question, I can't tell you how many times, over the past 4 years, and I haven't heard a single person give me a single policy. I mean, there's always this vague, well, you had the stimulus plan. Well, show me where in the stimulus plan, what jobs came out of that. I never get an answer. Anyway, I digress. So what policies can I point to that Trump did? Well, first thing I can point to is his hard line on immigration. If you take a look at who's unemployed, like who are the people who are out of work and looking for a job but just can't find one. And what you learn is when you decompose that population, you learn that they are disproportionately uneducated or lacking education, disproportionately unskilled or lacking skills, and disproportionately not white, mostly black or Hispanic. And so those are the kinds of people, the people in the unemployed population, who can't find work. And why can't they find work? Well, they're looking for jobs, mostly labor-intensive jobs, that are the same exact kind of jobs that illegal aliens coming into the country will take from them. Landscapers, roofers, all kinds of, house painters, things like that require very little skill, very little education, but pay pretty well. But they can be undercut because you have American citizens, that is, can be undercut by illegal aliens coming in, working at wages below what American citizens would get paid. And so that keeps the black unemployment rate and the Hispanic unemployment rate at a certain level. But if you can cut off that supply of cheap labor, then American businesses are forced to hire at reasonable wages. And in fact, what we saw before the COVID crisis hit, over 1 million black people got jobs. 1 in 4 black people who were unemployed the day Trump was sworn in office, by the time COVID hit, 1 in 4 of those people had found jobs. That's a dramatic number that translates to people in their experience. I mean, if you're living in an area where there are a lot of people that fit that description, where they're low-skilled or unemployed, if 1 in 4 of your neighbors gets a job, you're going to notice that. I mean, because those people have been unemployed forever, and now all of a sudden they're getting work. And you know why. I mean, and that's the other thing, too. People in those communities know why they're getting the work. So I have a hard time reconciling this whole Trump is a Confederacy guy, with, the reality. But that's not where it ends. I mean, then Trump also had this urban renewal effort going on where he created opportunity zones in thousands of areas around the country, which are, and this is where it really gets hard for Democrats, which are primarily in Democrat-run towns and states. And the Democrats make a habit of promising, and never delivering, but just pointing fingers. It's the racist Republicans. It's the racist Republic. I mean, the perfect example of this is the water issue a few years ago in Flint, Michigan. There's not a Republican in sight. I mean, it's Flint, Michigan. It's got a Democrat mayor, Democrat board, Democrat water commissioner, Democrat, and they're looking. They can't find a Democrat. Oh wait, there's the governor. He's a Republican, and so they blame him for the water in Flint, Michigan. This is how the Democrats work. They don't solve problems. They make sure that they latch onto the problems so that you keep voting for them as they keep promising to solve it, and then they never do, but you keep electing them. They're playing you, okay? So the urban renewal and opportunity zones that Trump is creating is directed at these minority communities, which undermines loyalty to the Democrat Party, which is why now we're seeing everything we're seeing. The death of George Floyd was a murder. It wasn't police brutality. It was a policeman murdering a guy. It's worse than police brutality. And And you know, the media has latched onto that, but it's not. You know, it's not something. It's a focus that the political side of which they're trying to exploit to hurt the president after he's done these things and more that I'm about to mention to help poverty-stricken communities, mostly Black and Hispanic. The other thing he did was the First Step Act. And when Trump claims credit for this, he's so right to claim credit for it because the Democrats for years have been promising to do something like this, and they never did. And this is a perfect example of the thing I was talking about a minute ago. They tell you that they're going to solve this problem, and then they never do it. They never do. And they'll just blame. That's not leadership. When you just keep blaming and pointing fingers at other people, that's not leadership. Leadership is just taking the bull by the horns and saying, we're starting opportunity zones, and then starting them. And then, you know, let's see where it goes. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. But you gotta do stuff. Democrats, you know, they want things that are government-centric. And that creates dependency on government, and that's why people keep voting for Democrats, because they're afraid that if they don't, they're going to lose whatever that government subsidy is that they're getting should the Republicans get in. Won't happen. Republicans don't have that kind of guts. So you're safe. Trust me. So the First Step Act is helpful. And then there's the record low poverty rate among Black people. Now, the poverty rate among Black people is still very high. I mean, it's still around 20%. So that's still very high, but it's still lower than it's ever been. I mean, so that's a good thing. And again, this is something that people will say, well, Obama did that, you know, because if you look at where unemployment was when Obama was in office in 2009, you know, it was at its height, and it kept coming down slowly over the years. And, you know, Trump took it further down, and Trump brought it into record-breaking territory. You know, and I'm perfectly willing, as I said, to give President Obama credit for anything he did, if he did it. You know, but see, that's the question. Just being in the job at the time doesn't mean you should get credit for it. You got to have done something. I'm here giving you a list of things that President Trump has done affirmatively, actions he's taken to actually make things better, while he's being called a Confederate by some moron in the news media. So I would expect that if people are going to defend the record of Barack Obama, they would do it the same way. They would say, well, no, you're wrong. This is what President Obama did, and this is how it helped. You know, but I never get that answer from liberals. Never. Now, the final thing I want to bring up that President Trump did that no Confederate sympathizer would ever do is that he made permanent the funding for historically Black colleges and universities. Now, until now, that funding was there, but it had to be renewed. So they always kept them like, you know, it's like holding, you know, it's like dangling a carrot, you know, dangling a carrot. So you reach for it. That's what they were doing until now. So Trump said, you know, enough of that. Let's just make it permanent so people don't have to be grabbing at dangling carrots, you know, and that's what President Trump did. So none of this, obviously, makes President Trump look like a racist or a Confederate sympathizer. And so I would like to know, if anybody's watching this, what did President Trump ever do that makes you think he's racist? Or even more stupidly, a Confederate sympathizer? If you have an answer, I'm perfectly willing to hear it. Take it easy.